Well, put it this way, one can't discount that this is the possibility, understand? I mean, look, we had, George Orwell wrote about things like this. We know about ideas of surveillance and control. Whether or not it was designed from the beginning, I don't know. You should ask Professor Wiener that question. I really can't speak for them or answer for them. All I know is what is the result, how it functions, and the extraordinary means to which the government and the corporations went to keep control, to stop that control from moving to the edge or becoming decentralized. Now, the namespace model was about enabling or transitioning the domain system to the edge, making it peer-to-peer, not making it a centralized command and control model, making the global function one of interdependence and equal responsibility. And this I saw ultimately as a kind of a digital realm of technical implementation of a democracy by technical means, because it requires agreement and cooperation on a technical scale. And in fact, the whole idea of the Internet Engineering Task Force, or the people who were really energetic in making the net work, is this idea of consensus. Not authoritarianism, but consensus. And the whole idea is rough consensus and running code. I'm sure probably everybody you interviewed used that line. But when it really comes down to it, there's not this consensus, because it's ultimately in the hands of who controls the corporate infrastructure of the net. And this where it interfaces with the government. So the namespace model is meant to decentralize and create a peered situation, not a command and control situation. Yeah? And this has a great implication for local autonomy and global cooperation. So this is the whole question that we have faced now, for example, with globalization. You know, if you look at the internet as a kind of digital media globalization, okay, and the fact that it's not governed by our Constitution, like, for example, in the United States. There's no First Amendment protection per se on the internet, because where the government is not involved in restricting speech, there's no protection. There's no constitutional protection. When your governance is a corporate contract that you sign with AOL, Time Warner, or Microsoft, their First Amendment right is protected against you, you see? You're not protected as an individual. You don't have any rights. Your rights are only that as a consumer, you see? So we're not becoming citizens anymore. We're not netizens anymore. We're consumers. So the point behind namespace ultimately then is about autonomy and self-determination, ultimately leading to a democracy of the digital commons, which today is lacking and is totally threatened as the consolidation of corporate control over media and the shutting off, the filibustering, the discrediting, the censoring of independent voices through economic warfare, basically, by crushing them economically, predatory pricing, violation of antitrust laws, you know, denial of access. These are the functions that are happening now that threaten not only the namespace project from reaching its final conclusion, which is universal recognition of our domains, and autonomous control, and a decentralized, localized database system, but in general. And unfortunately, people don't understand this, because as even people who we know and respect don't use computers and are dismissive or don't understand this, they think it's a new model that's foreign from political or social systems. It's not. This is corporate fascism. Basically, the future of the internet, going along the lines of the World Trade Organization and corporate globalization, is corporate fascism. And there's a threat not only to media democracy, but to democracy. We become consumers. We're not citizens anymore. We lose our rights, where our local law and our local protection in the real world, not only in the digital world, but one reflects the other, is being replaced by corporate contracts. That's what we're threatened by. And so a simple thing like signing up for WTO.sucks, or I think Reverend Billy is going to do Starbucks.sucks, would actually create a wave of digital democracy that can extend not only the means to communicate that, but to support this autonomous infrastructure. Yeah?
This means you think a digital future is coming.
No, the digital future is here.
Not for
but
all
the
of
corporate
us.
fascism,
Not
no,
for,
it's
not for all of us.
not for all of us, but it's established enough that the ripple effect will take place over the next 2 to 3 decades. As any impact of the advent of radio, advent of television, the whole idea of, you know, the American consumer model, why people in Europe felt threatened by the American consumer model, yet at the same time were very intoxicated by it, very seduced by that. And in fact, I remember when I first went to Europe in the 80s, that the televisions were state. The telecommunications infrastructure were state-run. Then became slowly privatized. There's still, of course, some state-run TV, which to a point was a good thing. But now, in a sense, even though the way government goes now, I prefer not to have government in my life, or as little as possible. I also don't prefer to have corporations in my life either, because this whole concept of corporate governance, where the corporate globalization overwhelms or replaces, supplants our local sovereignty and our local law. This is a threat. So we have to find some kind of a balance where the citizen matters, where we are citizens and where we're not consumers. And I think the only way that we can do this at this point is that the citizens have to recognize each other, that they have power, and to find a way to consolidate that. And to do this through networks. Because the first means of communication, look, truth is the first casualty of war. People's perception of truth is shaped by the media. Why the term of art in information warfare is perception management. You know, it's this very military corporate thing, if you think about it, management. And managing perception, well, advertising is information warfare. The way we perceive the news, the way events are presented to us, is from a very military corporate point of view. You know, when Dan Rather broke down and cried on television on David Letterman and said, oh, our dear leader, W. Bush, I'll do whatever you want me to do. He proclaimed his complicity to this kind of strangled hold over the media that the government and corporate structures are putting. And basically they're seducing the public into this fame and sensation, you know, coming from Andy Warhol, everybody will have their 15 minutes of fame. What I say is, and what we need to do is, look, you can forget about 15 minutes of fame. What about 5 minutes of truth?